What's up guys, I'm back with another video and today I'm going to show you a continuation of the last video. I'm going to show you how we can start building out our schemas, right guys? So the idea of this is we're going to possibly, turn this into an economy bot where we're going to track data for every user like a balance, but it doesn't have to be an economy bot. This can just be for making schema for a user, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. So let's go over to our code, and before we start, don't forget about this guys. If you would like to buy the source code for this video, you can always go to your favorite browser and you can just go to evenmorecode.com, and here is my site. You'll see all my latest videos right here, and you'll see all the source code associated with it. For example, the context menu video. If you want to buy the source code, just click buy. The source code will also be in the first link of this video. So without further ado, let's get into the code. So what we're going to want to do is go to the File Explorer, and we're going to create a new folder. So we have this commands folder, we have this context folder, but now we're going to make a new folder, and we're going to call this models. These will be the models. Okay, don't misspell it like me, but these will be, how do you rename this? Am I blind? Rename. Models. So this will be all the models for our database, and the first model we're going to make is a user. So I'm going to call this user.js, and then we're going to just import mongoose. So that's what we're going to use to get this working. Mongoose equals require, and then the package name, which is mongoose. Then we're going to go down here and we're just going to create the schema. So I'm going to say const user schema equals new mongoose dot schema, and then we're going to then specify any data points that we want to collect for each user in your Discord server. So first we're going to need their ID, their user ID, and we'll call this Discord ID. Okay, you can call these whatever you want, just if you call them something here, you're going to forever have to use that name everywhere else in your code, okay? You can call this user ID if you would like. Maybe I should call it user ID, okay? Maybe just to keep it simple, I'll call it user ID because that's how my old tutorial was. So I'll just keep that. And then I'll do type. So then you have to specify the data type of this column, and this will be a string, okay? This will be a string, and then you can set if you want it to be required. This has to be required, so I'm going to say true. And that's it. We're going to set that as required true. Okay. You can also set it as unique if you would like, which would prevent, all you got to do is this. We're going to prevent, okay, is that not spelled right? Unique. Oh geez. Okay, you can also set this unique to true. I'm not going to do that because I'll tell you why. Our bot right now, if you've been following along with this tutorial, this is a multi-server bot. This bot is in many servers. So if the same user is in both servers, I'm going to keep each server separate in terms of their data points. So if a user has a profile in one server, I want that to be a different profile than another server. You can keep it the same and you can make this unique, but I'm going to, because I have gotten this requested by a lot of people, I'm going to keep it so that it's going to check for their server and their user ID, which means this can't be unique because there can be two data points with the same user ID, but they would have to have different server IDs. So I won't do unique there, but we'll do our own checks later. And then we're going to add server ID. And this will also be a string, and this will also be required. Okay. And then any other data point that you want is totally fine. Normally what you would want to do here is a balance. But do we want to do balance? Why don't we just do this? Why don't we just do messages? or why don't we do message count, okay? Because I don't really want to start the economy aspect of this just yet, because I kind of just want to show you guys how to collect data for certain users. So let's just keep a message count, and this will be a type of integer. So we can say int, or I think what they'll want in JavaScript is number. And then we can say required, this doesn't need to be required. So we'll just say type number, okay? And then what else should we do? I think this is good for now, okay? This is good for a good base start. So we'll say module.exports equals mongoose.model, and then we're going to name this model. I'm going to call this the user model, and then this will be the user schema, which is from right here. So then that's our schema, and then I'm going to also implement, so this will be something very new, but I think it's going to help us in the long run, is I'm going to implement helper functions for our database. So I'm actually going to make a new folder, not inside the models folder, but in your base directory. I'm going to create a new folder called DB. And inside this will be all the DB helper functions. So I'll say here, I'll call this user.js, I guess. Or maybe I should do user, yeah, I'll do user helper, okay? I don't really love that name, but we're gonna stick with it for now. So then in here, we're going to import that model. So we'll say const user equals require, and then we'll go down to the models folder, which we just created, and then get the user file. So now this is the user schema essentially, and we can query based off this user schema. And so the way MongoDB works is you can do different commands such as finding a user, deleting a user, making a new user, all this good stuff. It's pretty simple. And so let's just make some functions here that we'll eventually use in our other commands. So we'll create an async function, and we'll call this get or create user. This will take in a Discord ID, a server ID. Yeah, this will take in a Discord ID and a server ID. And then we can write the logic for this function. So we'll just say let user equals await, and then we're going to do the schema. So user dot find one. So this is going to search inside there, and we're going to specify exactly what we want to search by. So this will be an object. So whatever you call the property in your user. So I had a user ID and a server ID. So if I call this Discord ID, then I have to do user ID is equal to Discord ID, and then server ID is equal to server ID. But a little trick in JavaScript is that if this and this are the same, then it's the same as deleting that and just having this, right? So I'm going to change this to user ID so that I can simplify my code, but I just wanted you guys to see that, so in case you guys change your variable names, it won't be the same. But if you do keep them the same, then it can look like that. So we'll just find one based off the user ID and server ID. So we'll have to match both these properties. So if a user does exist, then we're going to return that user, and then we have access to that user. But if they don't exist, then we'll write logic for that. So if not user, then user equals new user. We create a new user, and then we can pass in all the information. So Discord, server ID, there we go. And then below here, we can just say await user dot save. And then we will be saving our user into the database. And then we will build on this later, but for now, let's just export this. So module.exports equals get or create user. There we go. So now we'll have access to this function in other areas. One thing I just remembered though, guys, let's go back to the schema and let's do a default message count. Default, and we'll just default that to 0 because it is a counter. Okay, so let's now go to our index, and when someone makes a command, So we'll go to the commands. Actually, yeah. How about instead of, we could do message count and maybe we could do that later, but let's just change this to command count just because that will be easier to implement because we already have that written out. So yeah, we'll do a command count, a command counter for each user. So that way we can keep track of how many commands they run the bot, and then maybe we can reward users who use our bot the most or something, or we can have a leaderboard. But that will be down the line. So if we go into our index.js and we look at where we have the command handler, this is where we can get that user, right? So where do we execute the command? Right here at command.execute. So if we make it here, what we want to do is we want to say get. We want to use that function we just created, which we called get or create user. So get or create user. So it will auto import it, but if you guys don't have auto importing, I'll show you how to do that at the top. We'll just say const get or create, I think. I keep forgetting. Create user, and we'll import that from that file. So navigate out of it, not that far, into db/user helper. There you go. That is what it's called, right? Get or create user. Yeah. Okay, then when we go down to our command handler, this is where we can get or create the user, right? So we can say const user, const user data, we'll call user data, equals get or create user. And then we will pass in the parameters, which we can see here is the user ID and the server ID. The user ID will be interaction.user.id, and then the server ID will be interaction.guild.id. And that's it. So then it will create that if they don't already have it, and it will give us the user data. So then we can pass in user data right here into all of our commands because this is executing the command. So for example, if we go into one of our commands, for example, the greet command, we can accept the user data here, and we can add to this message, you have used blank commands. So we'll say user data dot command count commands. Okay, so then let's go down to the terminal and let's restart our bot. So we'll say node period, just to make sure. And let's see what happens. Let's see if we run into any errors. I just want to show you guys the raw experience of doing this, so maybe it will help you learn. /greet. Looks like it's getting hung up, which means there's an error. And then let's see what it says. Discord is not defined. Discord. Okay, I don't know why I called that Discord. Hopefully you guys caught that. Change that to user ID. In the get or create user, this should be user ID and server ID. Hopefully you guys caught that. Let's restart the bot. Let's go back. Let's do the greet command again. And let's see what happens. Hello, even more code. You have used undefined commands. Okay, so it says undefined, which is interesting. So let's go to MongoDB and see what's happening. So we'll go into our project, MongoDB. Here's our MeowBot. Let's see, browse collections. Here's our users collection. So under the test one, user collections, and we have user ID, server ID, and command count. So it looked like it successfully created our user. This is where you'll see the list of all your users, and under clusters, and then go to your correct collection. And it says command count is 0, but in the code, we do return user index. I see. I think I just didn't await this. So let's just add this to an await. And then let's restart the bot and see if that helps. Just await. And there you go. Now it says, hello, even more code. You have 0 commands. So now it's pulling this number. We have access to any column here in the database for that user. And obviously, guys, I hope your imaginations are, having fireworks right now of all the things you can do here. All the properties you can set to the user. You can collect any kind of data, or, obviously with the economy bot, you can have points or a balance or money, right? A currency. But for command count, now what we need to do is every time they make a command, we want to increment that counter, right? So after we execute this command, we can increment the counter here, right? So increment command counter. So let's just go into our user helper and we can just make a new function, right? So what we could do is we could say async function, and we can say increment command cmd counter, right? And we can just shorthand this to inc command counter, and this will just take a user ID, it will take a server ID, and that's it. And then all we got to do here is we just got to say await user dot find, is there just an update 1. So we'll just say update 1, we'll pass in the user ID, and we'll pass in the server ID, same thing that we did up here when we got the find one. Now we're just updating one. So we're saying who we want to update, and now we want to say what we want to update. So then we can do another object, and we do money sign inc, so that just means increment, then another object, and then you just want to say the property that you want to update. So I want to say command count, and I want to update that by 1. And that should be it. So then if we export this, increment counter ID, then we'll go to our index and we will import that as increment command counter. And then right here we can just call increment command counter interaction.user.id interaction.guild.id. And so then now let's restart this, and we can just, for clarity, we can do await also here. We'll start this up node, and then now when we run the same command, it says 0 commands. Okay, so that just probably incremented there. If I run it again, it now says I have used 1 command. If I do it again, it will say I have 2, and so on and so forth. And so this won't just work for the greet command, right? So let's say I use the quote command. So if I get the quote of the day, that counts as a command, right? So now when I do the counter, it should say 6. So I'll do /greet, and it will say I have now done, right, that's actually right, because it was 4 here, and then it counted this one, and now it's 6. So there you guys go. That's how you can do a command counter. That's how we connect to a database. I know this is really something simple, but if you just want to track how many people, maybe this is not something you want to collect, the command counter, you can also do a message counter, and instead of doing this on every interaction, you can just do this on every message. You can also do that. Now we fully have a database set up, and if we reload this page, you'll see we have the data here. We have the commands in our users table. We now have 11, and it's tracking per server. To show you guys that this works for multi-servers, let's see how this is for our user ID, my user, so even more code, my account, in this specific server. And that server would be my Meowbot server. But if I go to my old Dinobot server, and I also have my dev Meowbot bot, if I use the greet command here, then it's going to say, hello, even more code, you have used 0 commands, right? And then I'm going to do it again, and it's going to say 1 commands, right? So now it's counting my individual person per server. So this was a question that got brought about the old economy bot. So now think about that. if I go back to here, it doesn't count those, right? So it's just going to keep going up 10 to 11. Now, if I do here, it's going to keep going up 1 to 2. So it's very separate. So if it doesn't matter if you have the same users in multiple servers, you can now fully use this bot in any server. It's going to keep track of all your users per server. So if we go here back to MongoDB, and we check the list of users, you'll see it basically treats each user, even though this is the same user, it treats them as two different profiles because this is the profile in this server and this is the profile in that server. So hopefully you guys find this video useful. Don't forget you can get the source code in the link in the description below from my website, evenmorecode.com. I'm planning on making even more videos. Please let me know in the comments below about any ideas that you have. What can I implement further? Hopefully you guys find this easy to follow. Give me any feedback, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Please don't forget to like the video. That really helps my channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.